Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Mason, and you may be wondering, why are you seeing this video? And why did why was this sent to me? Well, if this was sent to you or you're just seeing this because it's on my channel, then you have been selected to view the Lennox experiment. The Lennox experiment is an experiment that I've conducted over the past few weeks. And I think you'll all be very happy to hear about what I have to share with you guys. So let's not waste any more time and let's get right into this. So, introduction. If you have ever met my friend Eddie Lennox, aka George Santos, because he cons, yeah, Eddie, you con. If you have ever met my friend Eddie Lennox before, you may find that he is a man with complex personalities. Eddie one day aspires to be a high school history teacher. How nice of a career. However, is Eddie truly fit to teach the future generation of society? So, of course, in order to conduct a successful and reliable experiment, we must have a hypothesis. And this is my hypothesis for this experiment. Eddie's complex personalities will make him a perfect fit for his future career as a high school history teacher. So, pretty good hypothesis start. It's benefiting Eddie. Not that I would ever try to hurt Eddie in this experiment, right? So, a little background on Eddie before we get into the actual experiment. We of course need a general background of him. So Eddie was born on December 26, 2005. Wow, what a perfect gift for the Lennox family, am I right? Okay, I'll stop. Also, no, but seriously. Also, we need to keep this birthday in mind. This birthday will come back up later in this slideshow, and or in a little bit, I should say. Eddie has two siblings, Grace and Jimmy. Jimmy is currently the president of the class of 2026, which I mean is a pretty cool thing, but not as cool as being a scientist, am I right? And Grace is currently a college student, which is what I'll be in by the end of this year. Eddie was a member of the school's mock trial team, playing the lawyer role, and I'm saying was because he's also graduating with me. So mock trial is already over with, so like we're really not part of the team anymore. But anyways, this experiment is based off of Eddie's actions in his mock trial career. We're not just going into a senior year; we're going throughout his whole entire career. Uh, the most notable moments of his career. So let's start out with the man of science, is what I like to call this topic. First, we must look at Eddie's role in mock trial before he became a lawyer, because obviously he's not going to be a lawyer right off the bat. Like, he starts out as a witness. Like, you have to work your way up through these things, am I right? So, in his sophomore year of high school, Eddie played the witness role of Chris McCarran during this trial. I think the trial was like about like sterilizing a horse named Smartman or something. But anyways, Eddie played the witness role of Chris McCarran, which Chris McCarran was. If you were part of the mock trial team during my sophomore year of high school, you would know that Chris McCarran is a deranged scientist who isn't really the smartest person out there. Kind of fits Eddie person. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. When Eddie is being crossed, so Eddie is currently on his cross examination right now. His heart is pounding out of his chest because he wants to make the most. He wants to impress the team, and he sure did all right. So when Eddie is being crossed, his responses are shocking, as you will see in this small clip that I found. Let's watch it, shall we?
Herself, sorry. So you really can't say anything like this.
Is it true that you had a personal connection with the deceased?
I did know Eddie, not Eddie. I knew Pollard. I knew Pollard closely, but I am a man of science. I want to find who did this and what really happened. I use the science and what the science can show. Okay, that's that.
Pretty funny clip, am I right? Anyways, wait, hold on a
Herself,
second.
sorry.
Okay, I think we're good. Uh, so the man of science. Hold on, let me close out these tabs. Hold on, it's just a second. We're having some technical difficulties here. No, wait, no, that's the next slide. All right. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay. As you just saw, Eddie makes the implication that he is some higher force. Now, this is just an implication, so we don't really know if he means this. But if you're saying you're a man of science, like, you have to mean that you're a higher force of some sort. Now, this can be taken many different ways. One may see this. I have hair in my mouth. One may see this as Eddie having an ego trip. We all know how that plays out for teachers, am I right? One can also see this as Eddie having confidence in himself, a great a trait that a good teacher has. We all want our teachers to be confident in themselves. Uh, but either way, this part of the experiment is too open of a topic, so we really can't make our final conclusion based off of this 30-second clip of Eddie. So we have to keep digging deeper. So I accidentally revealed this slide earlier, but you really didn't get to see it. So expert in sounds is what I like to call this section of the experiment. We now move on to where Eddie is now promoted to a lawyer. So at this point in his mock trial career, he is now a lawyer. In his second trial of his junior year, Eddie was just sitting in his chair at the lawyer's table when all of a sudden the witness he was going to cross examine claimed that she heard a sound very well. And what do you think Eddie did? He leapt out of his chair and said the words, objection, Your Honor. She's not an expert in sounds. At this point, the whole courtroom was in a state of confusion. Even the judge didn't know what to say. Despite this confusion, however, laid upon the judge eventually came to a shocking response. After the objection was discussed, the objection was sustained. Now, for people that really don't know how the courtroom works, when you sustain an objection, it means that the lawyer is right for being angry. So in this case, Eddie was right in being angry. So now, this next part that I'm going to show you is really going to blow your minds. I can guarantee you, after I just presented that slide, your jaw dropped because of the shocking events I just described to you. I mean, obviously, the fact that Eddie was able to get the objection sustained, that's kind of crazy, but that's a whole different thing. The fact that Eddie was able to put a whole courtroom into the state of confusion and ended up getting his way in the end can show that he is a magical elf. So, going back to that date earlier that I talked about, his birthday, he was born on the day after Christmas. So, like, it obviously makes sense that he has something to do with being festive. And what other way to describe his festivities is that he's actually an elf. Yes, Eddie Lennox is an elf, a magical elf. You heard that first here. Eddie's magical powers can either help or hurt his students, depending on if he plans to use these powers to help his students. So obviously, we want him to use these powers to help his students, but we don't know what he's going to do with his powers. Eddie, I'm hoping if you're watching this video and you do still become a teacher after this, that you do use your elf powers the right way. Anyways, so now we move on to prepping for the big day. So this is present time, the trial that recently just happened. Uh, One day before the trial, I decided to show up because they had like a pre-meeting, so I decided to show up to it. And this was the final meeting before the trial. So I decided to go to it. Why not? And when a good friend of mine, who is also an understudy of my brother, who is also a lawyer, did a practice cross examination on Eddie's witness, which is actually Jimmy, by the way. Pretty cool, right? Uh, he did a practice cross examination on Eddie's witness, and I decided to pull out my phone and record the first 30 seconds of it. And man, what did I get in the first 30 seconds, you may be asking? Take a listen for yourself.
That you were hired by the Wichita Police Department in 2019.
Yes.
When you were hired, the police department didn't really conduct an interview with you, did they?
Well, it's really relevance.
Thank you.
Tell him that.
I don't know.
Connor told me to object,
I
okay?
hate this.
I'm not
Is
really
this
a
why you
bad
let me
guy.
go?
Oh, there are a bunch of questions.
What was the question?
Okay, so as you just heard, Eddie was able to prepare his fellow mates for the upcoming trial while also using his his elf powers yet again to confuse the entire room. Now, you can make the argument that this understudy is new to the club and may not know how to respond to an objection, but we're going to go back and listen to the tape again. Let's just take another listen to the beginning of
Is
this
it true
tape.
that you were hired by the Wisteria
Let's
Police
restart
Department
it.
in 2019?
Yes.
When you were hired by Is it
Here we
true that you were hired by the Wisteria Police Department in 2019?
Yes.
When you were hired, the police department didn't really conduct an interview with you, did they?
Well, I'm sure they relevance.
Thank you.
Also, I know that I'm going to get the understudy after me for this, but the understudy whose name is Troy. So shout out to Troy for being brave and standing up to Mr. Lennox here.
Is it true that you were hired by the
Okay, there we go. So now we just listen to the tape again. We can hear that after this objection, the whole room was silent for a little bit, but then laughed in confusion after this period of silence. Eddie may be more powerful than Kronos. Yes, I know Kronos is a very powerful human being, but I think we found ourselves the next powerful human, which is Eddie, not Kronos. Kronos lost that role now. But this doesn't mean Eddie will be an evil teacher, or maybe he could be. I mean, we don't know. Like I said earlier, we don't know what Eddie wants to do with these powers. Hopefully, he uses them for the good of his students. I mean, we don't want him to like be like this like evil teacher that like we just don't want him to be evil. So now we move to the day of the trial. Now comes the huge day for Mr. Lennox, the day of his last trial as a member of mock trial. Before the trial, while we were in AP Lit, Eddie comes to me and asks me to read over his cross-examination since he wasn't feeling too confident in it. I read it over and told him that it could still use a little work, but it wasn't awful. Despite this, he still believed his cross was terrible. Now, do you remember how I said earlier that we couldn't use the Man of Science video since it was too open of a topic? Well, this action of Eddie in school completely proves that point because of how low his confidence is. So, since this is Eddie's last trial, and the last trial I would see with my time in mock trial, I decided to go and watch the trial and also observe it to see if I can gather any last minute information from my experiment. Some of the notes I gathered were as follows. Now, keep in mind, these notes I'm about to read to you were exactly how they appeared in my notebook, so this proves the legitimacy of this experiment. I did not reword anything. Uh, so when he was asked to call a witness, he said defense, being despite being prosecution. Maybe he had too many limoncellos. I don't know. He also gave the wrong exhibit, so he was trying to give an exhibit to like the courtroom, but he gave the wrong exhibit. Keep that in mind. He also threw himself back into the chair. Was he frustrated with his witness, maybe? Who knows? He missed a potential objection for hearsay. He wasn't clear when asking his questions. And finally, is Eddie adopted? Maybe this is another experiment for the future. Who knows? Wow, that was a lot I just presented to you guys. Let me break that down for you. As we can see, Eddie may have used his elf powers on himself instead of the courtroom by confusing himself and saying, the defense calls, despite being on the prosecution side. He also seems to misuse his powers when he hands the courtroom the wrong exhibit. This not only caused confusion on himself, but chaos within the entire courtroom. Not really using those powers for the good, Eddie. Eddie was clearly frustrated with how he performed and how his witness didn't perform to the best of his ability when he threw himself back into the chair. This can be a bad trait for a teacher because teachers really need to keep their composure even when their students can become frustrating. You don't want a teacher that's always angry, now do you? Eddie missing a potential objection for hearsay can be a bad sign because teachers need to be observant to make sure their students don't cheat on tests. Eddie clearly wasn't being observant here. So, if I were sitting in Eddie's class, you know I would be cheating on his tests because he wouldn't be watching me to see what I'm doing. Eddie being unclear with his cross-examination can be a bad trait because in order to be a good teacher, you must be clear with what you're trying to teach your students. Obviously, no student's going to want to sit up there and not understand what you're saying. So you obviously need to be clear with what you're doing. Okay, now this last bullet really doesn't have anything to do with the experiment, but I wasn't not going to not take note of it. I couldn't leave this unnoticed. At the end of the trial, The judge didn't think that Jimmy and Eddie looked related to each other. This sparked the question of, is Eddie also adopted? This question will possibly be answered in another experiment that I might do. Keyword might. I don't know. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Let me know if you guys want to see that experiment. So, summary and conclusion. That was a lot of information we just went over. Before I give you my final conclusion, let me summarize the key points of this experiment for you. Eddie, being the man of science, has no influence on Eddie's teaching career since he was never truly a confident person. Eddie has elf powers, which can make himself confused if he doesn't use them correctly, or can make a whole room confused to get what he wants or to help others, if used properly. Eddie's frustration and failure to observe what is going on around him can be killers in his goals to become a high school history teacher. Now that I gave you guys the summary of this, let's go over the conclusion. The conclusion I came to. Maybe yours might be different from mine. Actually, you know what? You know what? Take a few seconds and pause this video and think about, based on, you can go scroll back in the video if you want. That just scared the shit out of me. Anyways, so go back to the video, or if you want to watch like the whole experiment again, or if not, pause the video and think of a valid conclusion based off of all the information I gave you. There's no wrong answer here, so I'll let you pause the video right now. Okay, you're good. You came to a conclusion. I hope you did. Anyways, let's go over my conclusion, shall we? Based off of Eddie's possession of elf powers and characteristics, Eddie would be a great high school history teacher. Despite showing bad characteristics, I believe that Eddie can work on these flaws to become the best teacher mankind has ever seen. I mean, everyone has flaws after all, but if we work on these flaws, we can become the best person that we want to be. Some may feel that this conclusion is controversial. Well, I mean, obviously it is. You are never going to have an experiment that doesn't raise controversy. No matter how people feel about my conclusions, I want to say that these findings are based off scientific facts and unbiased observations. I mean, after all, I use science and what science can show, okay? That's that. So, yeah, so that is the end of my experiment. Thank you for watching this, if you received this or you saw the upload on my channel, because you're actually a good subscriber of mine, even though I never upload on this channel. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's experiment. Let me know if you want to see the Is Eddie Adopted experiment. And yeah, see you guys later. Bye. Let's figure out how to end this thing. I'm on max, so wait, there we go. What the? Okay. I have to hit up here. Okay. Exit full screen. All right. Now the video is actually ending, guys. Goodbye.